Welcome to the Higher Ed Jobs Podcast. I'm Andy Hibble, the Chief Operating Officer and one of the co-founders of Higher Ed Jobs.
And I'm Kelly Sherwin, the Director of Editorial Strategy. Today, we're joined by Dr. Patrick Brugh, Director of the Center for Staff Life Design at Johns Hopkins University. We're going to spend some time talking about life design, what it is, how it's being used in higher education, and how institutions can better support staff development, career growth, and long-term engagement. Patrick leads a university-wide initiative focused on helping staff connect their current roles with their long-term personal and professional goals. His work centers on human-centered design, talent development, and building systems that support growth across all levels of an institution. Before joining Johns Hopkins, he worked in design strategy, leading large-scale initiatives to improve organizational effectiveness and user experience. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So, Patrick, life design has been widely used on the student side of things, but we're going to be talking about the staff side today. So what gap did you see when it came to staff that led to the creation of this center?
So life design has been at Johns Hopkins University since 2018. Farouk Day joined as the Vice Provost of Integrative Learning and Life Design in 2018. And we shifted from a career center model for undergraduate students and graduate students to a life design model starting in 2019. So I was part of the initial class of life design educators who were hired to come in and set up this kind of life design experiment at Johns Hopkins, which was threaded all through the university. And this was a really wild idea at the time. So I came in as the life design educator for student athletes. I have a PhD in German literature, so I'd been a German professor and a sociology professor actually before coming over to Johns Hopkins and doing life design. But he pulled together this kind of ragtag bunch of former academics and looked for ways to integrate career services, so life design, across the entire curriculum, right? So he wanted us to be fully embedded with students and meet them where they were. We saw from the very first year that we launched life design at Johns Hopkins University that staff were thirsting for life design as well. So in our very first year, we actually offered an intensive 2-day life design training for all of our student services employees. And then I ran a life design cohort for staff and coaches in the rec center that lasted several months. What we found, though, then the COVID hit and we kind of adjusted to really focusing. Everybody sort of went into their corners. And so we really focused on the student experience for several years. But that initial sort of energy and success that we had with life design for students was picked up very, very quickly by staff as being something important. And more importantly than that, it was picked up by the executives across the university who started thinking about how can we take this very successful new program of life design and use it to support our staff in their career and professional growth. So in 2024, a work group was kicked off. I was no longer at the university. I was working in human-centered design for state governments. And there was a work group kicked off to figure out how is it that we can bring this to the forefront and what's the business case for starting a Center for Staff Life Design. So I was brought in August of 2024. The reasoning, once we kind of got in here, and the reasons that I see the big gaps that exist for staff at a university are not unusual at Johns Hopkins when compared to other universities. So if you think about the kinds of gaps in the employee experience that exist all across higher ed, they're right here at Hopkins too, right? We're just a pretty large institution, so we have a lot more staff than many universities. But they're pretty normal, right? They're things like opacity and career navigation, like where can I go next? What level can I actually jump to? Am I just going to replace my director or my assistant director someday? Or is there somewhere else for me? Another one that we saw really early on in our research is that silos make networking very, very difficult. And that's a traditional problem across higher education, right? So not just for academics, collaborating with each other, but also for thinking about where do you go next in your life if you don't even know what kinds of job opportunities exist across the institution. A third thing that we saw was that staff were having difficulty finding mentors and supporters. And that's tied to that silo issue, right? Because if I spend all of my time kind of focused very intensely on the work being done in my business unit, it's hard for me to make friends and connections across the university who can ultimately advocate for me when a cool project comes up or a committee comes up or a new job or a position opens up somewhere else. The fourth thing that we saw was challenges in navigating feelings of belonging and purpose. And this is where the Center for Staff Life Design gets its real bread and butter, right? So we saw a couple of things. One, we saw increased turnover in staff within the first 4 years. So that was our biggest chunk. Each year we lose more staff within the first 4 years than in any other kind of chunk throughout the employee life cycle. And so we want to reduce that, right? That costs money to the university. And, we don't want staff leaving here thinking they haven't gotten all they could get out of the university when it's such a large place with so many opportunities. But the other thing that we see is that when you measure experiences or feelings of belonging at the institution, you start seeing it dip and kind of bottom out around 8 years. And so not only did we want to kind of solve that turnover issue, but we also wanted to think about ways that we could build community and strengthen that experience of belonging.
That's a fantastic explanation, Patrick. Thank you so much for that. And for those listening who are saying, wow, this is such a cool program, I want it on our campus, or maybe some leaders that are listening, can we just back up for a second and can you explain where you're housed and where this could potentially fit in? I know every campus is different, but just kind of give us a little bit of background on that.
Yeah, so the Center for Staff Life Design is an enterprise level human resources program. We operate on every single campus and we support 13,000 full-time benefits eligible staff across the university. Johns Hopkins University is the #1 private employer in the state of Maryland. And if you expanded, like if you blew out our portfolio to be at its max, you would get upwards of 35,000 people who could potentially be touched by the work that we do. In order to really focus on the folks who we've found need us the most and the people who have the least amount of programming to support their career development, we've sort of restricted our core focus on those full-time benefits eligible staff, right? And make sure that they feel that sense of belonging, that they know where they can go and that they know who to turn to if they need support in finding a mentor or thinking about their next career step or moving on to come up with new skills or certifications, things like that. So we live in human resources, which can be awkward sometimes for our conversations. But one of the things that we do is we kind of act in that sort of like fiduciary sense. We try not to take extensive notes. We don't have a lot of one-on-one career conversations. We primarily work by building community. So our vision is that every employee at Johns Hopkins University, regardless of their social capital, their seniority, their discipline, their job title, or their job level, can live their life purpose through, with, or because of the Johns Hopkins community. And that through, with, or because of is a really important piece of the puzzle because systems are not the things that promote you, right? It's the networks that you build. It's the people that you're pulling together in your corner. And so what we're here to do is make sure that every employee knows who those people are in their corner. And that's done by building networks and building community.
Thank you so much for explaining that, Patrick. So you stressed how much building community and belongingness is so valued on your campus. One thing I saw is that how much you want to meet staff where they're at, compared to asking them to come to the central office. So how does that approach shape participation and engagement in these programs?
Yes. One of the things that we've done is that we've adopted very much. The undergraduate strategy and sort of mission of life design, right? And approach and language of life design. And we've customized it to suit the staff experience. So the way that we've kind of mapped the success of the life design lab onto staff is by thinking about how do staff actually show up on campus? Like, where would we find them, right? The goal of the Life Design Lab, the undergraduate kind of career center that focuses on life design for undergrad students, the way that they work is that they are allocated to portfolios that are vertical slices of the university. So think about your chemistry majors, your neuroscience majors, your humanities folks, your sociology folks, your mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, and so on, right? And so there's a life design educator aligned to each of those vertical parts of the student experience. And then there's life design educators who are aligned horizontally that cut across all of those academic experiences to things like student clubs, athletics, thinking about first generation limited income students, thinking about folks who are in leadership positions and so on and so forth, right? And so we did the same thing with staff is we thought like, where do staff actually group? Where do they congregate? And so staff, if we want to get to every single staff member across the university, 13,000 folks, right? And we're halfway there right now. We're up to 6,000 staff across the university have engaged with our programs. If we want to get to 100%, we need to think about what are those vertical slices where staff exist and where the horizontal slices, like where do they gather across their silos. So we aligned one life design consultant. That's what we call life design educators for staff. One life design consultant is aligned to the Homewood campus. One life design consultant is aligned to the East Baltimore campus, which is primarily medicine, School of Public Health, School of Medicine, School of Nursing. And so those are the vertical silos. And then we have one life design educator who's entirely focused on internal mobility, getting people new jobs and supporting our digital footprint. And her portfolio cuts across the entire group. So folks who are looking to move in their careers, looking to upskill, looking to explore new job families. So the way that that impacts, to your question, the way that that impacts the experience and the actual engagement with staff is that our life design consultants, they create a brand and a reputation and a set of programming that we've developed centrally. They take that and they make it customized to the group of staff that they're serving and connected to. So if I see my life design educator in my, departmental meetings, in my divisional meetings, running workshops, putting up posters, stopping me and talking to me while they're walking around campus, I'm going to know exactly who that person is and how to get to them if I need their support, right? And I'm going to understand, maybe at a high level, maybe at a deeper level, I'm going to understand exactly what services there are that they can provide me. So I've got this comfortable, familiar face who I know, I understand what they can do, and I understand what the larger product, right, of life design is at the university.
Patrick, you said this program started in 24, is that correct?
That's correct. So August 2024.
And you're already halfway there at over 6,000 employees. That's pretty impressive. So why do you think it's been so successful, and how do you think you can get to that 100% goal?
That's a great question. And it's one that we regularly revisit, right? So let me start by answering how do we plan to do it? There's a couple of different tactics that we're using. Life design is an approach to career and professional development that focuses on balance and coherency. So it comes out of Stanford. Dave Evans and Bill Burnett are the originators of this idea. When we brought it to Hopkins, we saw really quickly that we had to create a version of life design that was really honed into an East Coast vibe, for lack of a better word. Because what we found was that, folks at Hopkins are very tactical. Undergraduates are, and staff are too. And so what we need to do in order to get in front of those staff and engage with them is make sure they understand what value we're bringing to them. So we use a couple of different tactics to fulfill this kind of like 100% strategy. One of those tactics is getting as deeply embedded in each department and division as possible. So people who are in international health, they know that Shakitha Jeffries is their life design consultant because she is showing up to their divisional meetings. She is talking to them in the hallway. She's walking around their office. She is messaging them on Teams to let them know, hey, I'm here. And she's telling them what workshops she's running, right? So that's one part of it, is that kind of like presence piece. The other part of it is building a set of products that come directly out of what staff have told us that they want. So we're not just kind of randomly creating, workshops and courses and programs. We're asking staff, what do you want? What do you need? What is the support that you require? And then we're developing programs with them that are going to help support them in their career growth, right? So we have built out a curriculum that supports them all along that career discernment process. That's our traditional life design. We've built a career clinics model that gives them timely skills in resumes, LinkedIn, job searches, elevator pitches, things like that. And we've made sure that they're bite-sized and easy to digest, right? So they're not taking up all day long with a resume clinic. Then one of the number one things that we did when we first started was we built a human-centered design research program that actively works with staff to come up with new ideas or refine old ideas for how we can support them. And one of the top ideas that came out of that first kind of sprint was mentorship programs. There was no universal mentorship program for staff across the university. There were like little pockets here and there. And so early on, we were like, okay, let's build a mentorship program. And we did. And our first year, 150 people went through it. So our idea or the concept here is we build these programs with and alongside staff so that the things that we're offering, we know that they want them and that they're going to advocate for them. The last kind of step to this, and this is the part that's made this pretty successful early on, is that the university has been investing in software and applications to support career development and career navigation and career discernment for staff. So not only have we built self-paced courses and little bite-sized like life design nuggets for staff to snack on, but we've also implemented Eightfold AI, which is a talent intelligence platform that helps staff see career pathways across the university based on real jobs that are out there that align with skills that they have and helps them figure out who to talk to in order to learn more about those jobs. That platform will also become our mentorship platform across the entire university. So we're going to be able to scale up our mentorship program from 150 to over 1,000 staff at a time using this platform, right? And then finally, it actually serves up, it's an incredible product. It's a lot of fun. Happy to talk to anybody who's interested to hear about it. But it also serves up development plans, which we're working with our learning and development team to build so that staff can start exploring those careers across the university and learning more about, hey, I'm in IT, but I'm curious about data science, or I'm in administrative services, but I'm curious about human resources. And we're creating development plans that will help staff learn the skills and understand what those other job families are all about so they can make informed decisions about where they want to go next. So there's 3 layers here, and just to or 4 layers rather, just to recap, we've got those standard career skills to support staff. We've got the life design discernment courses that help them kind of figure out where they want to go next. We've got cohort mentorship programs that help them build those networks across the university. And then we've got technology and humans to support the entire thing and find the staff exactly where they are and deliver those custom experiences. So that is how we're going to get to 100%. And the only other thing I would say is we have an incredible data scientist who is supporting our office, Chris Navarro, and he has built out beautiful dashboards that not only help us see who we've engaged with, but also identify the people we haven't talked to yet, so we can directly reach out to them and say, hey there, Kelly, my name's Patrick. I'm your life design consultant. How can I help you? So we've really built these things along the way in thoughtful kind of iterations, but they are all building to that 100% target.
It's interesting as you go through all the different steps of the plan and the thoughtfulness behind it. It seems absolutely amazing and something that is well worth the investment of an institution. But as we all know from summer vacations with our families, nothing ever really goes perfectly to plan. What do you see in the process of really trying to work peer through one of these programs where there's some various road obstacles, hazards, or other things? What are the most common ones and what can be done to kind of work around them?
The common ones that we encounter are resource limitations on our side. There's only 6 people on our team total, myself included. And so that's a lot of people to cover a very large group of folks, right? And so that product at scale is really important. And it also requires, as you can imagine, building support structures and collaboration and partnerships across the university. So not all partnerships are ready to go right away. Sometimes some partnerships build a little slower, right? And for good reasons. Either they're skeptical or they've seen this before and they don't think it's going to work, or they just don't have time. They're like, something else is on fire right now, Patrick. I don't have time for you. And so just being kind of persistent, friendly face helps to overcome that roadblock. The other one that we see, and again, this is a feature of higher education, it's not unique to Hopkins, but is, when you have like kind of turf protection or silos or managers who are like, I don't want my employees thinking about another job. Like, that's not something I'm interested in. You need to see the long game and understand that you're trying to build and pull them in to be supporters over time. And I would add on top of that, managers and supervisors have their own aspirations. And so making sure that they understand, like, I'm here for you too, friend. And I'm here to support you as well as all of the people around you, above you and below you. That kind of helps to unlock some of that resistance that we've encountered. We've encountered in a few places that the kind of manager resistance, not as much as I thought. I'll be perfectly honest. Most of the managers and supervisors I talked to one just today who was like, who are you and what are you doing? Once you talk to them a little bit about what you do and what life design is, they get pretty excited about it, because who wouldn't want to provide something that's going to increase the feeling of belonging, team cohesion, access to information networks and influence? Like, that's what life design does, right? It plugs staff in across the university to each other. And yes, that opens doors and creates opportunities to leave or to jump to another department sometime. But it also creates information tendrils that are now reaching out into the university and collecting information and ways of working from other folks in other departments and divisions that can be brought back to the team and help the team perform better. Those are the main 2.
So I have a question in terms of measuring success. I know this might be a little bit difficult to answer because, again, I know it's fairly new. And I know you said that there's so many different priorities, increasing belongingness and, development. But then also, was it 4 years is when people kind of, you see an attrition rate?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I guess you'd be able to measure that in a few years. But what type of feedback have you received so far over the course of this program?
That's a great question. So we collect a lot of data. And I could run through the list, but I'll focus on the one that you just gave. So the two main pieces of data that we collect around staff experience with our program are the Net Promoter Score for our center, as well as what we call the value question. Like, did this experience provide value to you as an employee of Johns Hopkins University? That's the question. So for that second one, did this experience provide value to you? We tend to be between 98 and 100% per year. So our first year we were 98%. This year we're 99%. I was hoping we'd stay at 100%, but we had one dissatisfied customer, and that happens. Our NPS score is hovering in the high 60s, which is a very high level. So Net Promoter Score goes from negative 100 to 100. Mid to high 60s is a very strong brand. And that question is basically like, how likely are you to recommend the Center for Staff Life Design to a friend or a colleague? And the answer is really strong, right? So 67 basically says that we're in like the same range as very strong, well-known media brands. So that gives you kind of a sense. What's important, though, is when you think about how you actually measure learning and behavioral change, that initial feel-good survey is only scratching the surface, right? Because we're pretty good facilitators. We have a lot of fun. Our workshops are very dynamic. People come out and they're like, oh my gosh, like my brain's on fire. That was awesome. I made new friends. I can't wait to like do my next thing. But what does that actually translate into? So the things that we look at are a couple of different key indicators. So one, we look at retention of staff who have engaged with the Center for Staff Life Design versus staff who have not. All right, so turnover rate. And then the other thing that we look at is internal mobility. So that is really one of the key indicators that drives our work is like, are we retaining staff here and are we helping them move up through the organization or across the organization? And so the early data on that shows that staff who are engaged with the Center for Staff Life Design 3 to 10 times in an 18-month period have a 4 times lower turnover rate than staff who are not. So staff who are not engaged with the Center for Staff Life Design have about a 17% voluntary turnover rate, and staff engaged with the Center for Staff Life Design are down around 4%. So very low turnover rate. That's one big one that we've been tracking. And then the other one that we track is promotion. And the numbers are too early to really say like we have caused people to get new jobs. But what we can say is that staff who are engaged with the Center for Staff Life Design, just numerically, we know that they perform better and are promoted or receive competitive internal offers at a higher rate than staff who are not engaged with the Center for Staff Life Design. So, take that for what it's worth. We can't say we caused that. What we can say is that the people who are coming to us are thirsty for their next step. They tend to be highly engaged, right? They're not using this as a distraction or an out, and they're looking to find ways to stay here and grow. And that's what we want to deliver.
Patrick, thank you for explaining all that. This has been a fantastic conversation. So I guess my final question would be, if you had to give one piece of advice to institution looking to improve their staff development and help, create clear pathways for long-term growth, what would that advice be?
So we started with 2 cheat codes. I'm going to be perfectly honest. We started with a fully known concept of life design, right? Everybody already had seen how useful it was for our student population. So that was cheat code number 1. Cheat code number 2 that we had was that we had prioritized at the presidential level, had prioritized staff development and growth. And so there were a number of investments being made at the same time that the CSLD got started to support staff in their career and professional development. So one big one was career architecture. So just like many institutions, we're a highly fragmented institution. We're decentralized. The same job title might have like 6 different job descriptions, depending on where you are. We centralized some of that and tried to create clear career pathways for staff to grow through the university in their current job family and to understand the process by which you would move from one job family to another and move up that job ladder. So that's career architecture invested early on. The other thing was there were investments in platforms, right? So we implemented Eightfold. We implemented a new learning management system, Cornerstone. We implemented VMock, which is a resume and interview AI interview tool that helps you start to like practice your pitch and practice behavioral interviews. We were built into the 10 for 1 strategic goals, right? So President Daniels had basically blessed everything that was being done to support staff life design. That goes a long way. And then last but not least, there is a true staff thirst at the like kind of grassroots level for career support. So Staff Advisory Council was formed, and also the BFSA, the Black Faculty and Staff Association, which is one of the oldest in the country, is very, very involved in making sure staff life design came to fruition. So if I were trying to start this from scratch and I was an executive or a leader, I would want to do 3 things. The first thing I'd want to do is I would want to build a commitment to staff development and career support into the strategic priorities of my institution. Okay. So like put it there. This is a North Star. This is something we're committed to. Number 2 is I will want to establish political capital through engaged leaders who are invested in this work. So another cheat code I had coming in was there was a work group already established of very powerful executives across the university who were basically like, we're here to help. What do you need? And immediately embedded me into all the places that I wanted to be. So when I started, it was just me. And I had this team of folks who were willing to like help me get to places that I couldn't get. So build that kind of political capital. Make sure that there are executive sponsors, plural, who are actively talking about and supporting this kind of work. And then the third thing that I think a lot of executives that I've worked with tend to jump over is the human-centered design part of this. You need to engage staff in creating the programs that are intended to support them. And then follow through on it, like actually do the thing, right? If staff say we want mentorship programs, build mentorship programs. If staff say, we need a clear pathway for promotion, figure out how to build that, like start investing in that. So listening to staff and taking their needs seriously and then telling them what you can and can't deliver on, that is a huge part of the process. You always need to moderate the ideas that stem from a group of folks just ideating and brainstorming. You always need to kind of moderate that with business case. And if you bring a product mindset and this kind of iterative growth mindset to like how we're going to support staff, they'll see their fingerprints on the programs that you build and they'll get excited about them and they'll advocate for them the way they have at Hopkins. And then just to like the kind of coda on that is you have to have a bias toward action. Once you know this is something we should try, you got to try it. Build a little prototype of it, see how it works, and put some money and resources behind it. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a lot of money. We're a very inexpensive program, I might add. We do not cost a lot of money. Put a little bit of money behind it, and then you will see the dividends and be able to make that case for why you should keep and expand that program in the future.
That's fantastic advice. And that's really interesting about it not costing a ton, because I'm assuming some people listening are be like, they're going to go back to their leadership team. And the first question might be like, how much is this going to cost? So that's good to know that it's doable, not an astronomical cost. Patrick, this has been so interesting to learn about your program and your enthusiasm towards it. It sounds like it's a great benefit for your employees. So we appreciate you talking about it today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the podcast and gleaned as much from it as we did. What a wonderful novel program to be seen at an institution the size of Hopkins. If you have any questions or thoughts about this podcast or anything you want to share with the podcast, please feel free to email us at podcast@higheredjobs.com or drop us a direct message on X at higheredcareers. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to talking again real soon.